Lockwood spent 4 weeks in recovery from that illness he picked up while walking home from Wuthering Heights. Curiously, 3 weeks into his illness, Heathcliff stops by. Now, Lockwood was kind of sick, so he doesn't really remember much about the visit, but it's kind of interesting that Heathcliff would do that, considering, I don't know about you, but I got the impression that Heathcliff didn't like Lockwood, and he found him kind of annoying. Not surprisingly, the moment Lockwood feels better, he insists Nellie continue her story. So Nellie continues her story at Thrushcross Grange, where Catherine is in good spirits mostly and seems to be pretty fond of Edgar. And in turn, Edgar and his sister are really fond and good to Catherine. But Edgar is afraid to upset Catherine, and he also hides that from Catherine. He even went so far as to admonish Nellie for her snarkiness towards Catherine, which actually makes Nellie back off a little bit and be more friendly towards Catherine too. As good as things are there at Thrushcross Grange, Catherine switched between periods of sadness and silence and happiness, seemingly not being able to be fully happy there. Then, one September evening, about 6 months into Catherine's marriage, Heathcliff reappeared at Thrushcross Grange's kitchen and called for Nellie. At first, she didn't recognize him. It was kind of dark, and she didn't recognize the voice. But once she did, they had a very unusual kind of greeting where she's shocked and can't believe he's there and can't believe he's been gone for so long. But all he's focused on is Catherine and talking to her. And he insists Nellie bring her to him. At first she says no, she thinks this is going to be bad for Catherine, but Heathcliff insisted, so she eventually went upstairs to where Catherine and Edgar were. She did some housekeeping until she got up the nerve to tell Catherine a man from Gimmerton was there to see her, which is what Heathcliff told her to tell Catherine. So Catherine goes downstairs to meet this man from Gimmerton, and Edgar, not really thinking much about it, asked Nellie who this man was. And she told him it was Heathcliff, and Edgar was not happy. He went to the window and called for Catherine to bring the visitor upstairs. Catherine comes running upstairs and gives Edgar a big hug and is overjoyed that Heathcliff is there. Catherine wants Heathcliff to visit with them in the parlor, but Edgar thinks the kitchen is a more appropriate place for someone like Heathcliff. Has she never really explained to Edgar who Heathcliff was to her, and so that he could understand why she treats him the way she does? That just seems strange that Edgar doesn't seem to get the importance of this relationship. Then again, maybe he does, and he realizes it's a little too important, and he doesn't want Heathcliff there at all. I mean, maybe what's really going on is that Edgar sees that Catherine is a little too happy to see Heathcliff, and he probably could see the depth of her love for him. And so by pointing out that Heathcliff should be seen in the kitchen is a way to remind Catherine of Heathcliff's standing and kind of make Heathcliff look bad to Catherine. But Catherine is not that stupid, and she picks up on Edgar's pointing out that Heathcliff is of a lower class. And so she reminds him subtly that she is also of a lower class. So maybe Heathcliff and Catherine should visit in the kitchen, and Edgar and his sister, Isabella, could hang out in the parlor. Edgar gets her point, and he's like, no, bring him up here to the parlor. We'll have a good time. But Edgar also tells Catherine to try to be glad without being absurd. He says the whole household need not witness the sight of your welcoming a runaway servant as a brother. In the parlor, Nellie can get a good look at Heathcliff now and tells us he's changed in the intervening 3.5 years. He's grown tall, athletic, and handsome. She said standing next to Heathcliff, Edgar looked quite slender and youth-like. Nellie wondered if maybe he'd been in the army because he seemed to carry himself differently. He was mature and dignified, but he still had that half-civilized ferocity in his eyes. He was no longer rough, but still too stern to be graceful. Both Nellie and Edgar are completely surprised by his transformation. Heathcliff comes right out and says that the reason he came back was to see the surprised look on Catherine's face, get revenge on Hindley, and unalive himself before the law does. Hey, there's that half-civilized ferocity. But then Heathcliff tells Catherine that she seems so happy to see him, and so he's decided to stick around for a little while. I'm sure seeing how annoyed it is for Edgar to have him there has something to do with his decision to stay as well. In a twist, Heathcliff tells them that he's staying at Wuthering Heights. Hindley invited him to stay there when he called that morning. Was Hindley drunk? Of course he was drunk, but was he drunk when he offered that? Nellie didn't like that Heathcliff went to see Hindley. Not that I can blame her for that. She wants to know what he's up to, and she has a bad feeling about all of this. That night, Catherine wakes Nellie because she can't sleep, and Edgar is not willing to listen to her talk on and on about Heathcliff. Nellie was like, well, of course he won't. They don't like each other, and she should love her husband more and not show her feelings for Heathcliff so much. Catherine, of course, disagrees with that. Nellie asks Catherine what she thinks of Heathcliff staying at Wuthering Heights. Catherine explains that Heathcliff stopped by the Heights thinking she was there, and when he found out she wasn't, he asked where she was. Hindley was there with some others playing cards, and he invited Heathcliff to play. See, it turns out that Heathcliff has some money, and Hindley offered to let him stay at the Heights so Hindley can make some money off of the lodging and save Heathcliff some money. And Heathcliff agreed so that he could be close to Catherine. Oh yeah, all that sounds very innocent, don't you think? Nellie asked Catherine if she was worried about the consequences of Heathcliff living with Hindley. Catherine, of course, said no, not for Heathcliff, maybe a little for Hindley, since he isn't aware of Heathcliff's plan for revenge. And with that, Catherine bids Nellie good night and says she's going to go make peace with Edgar. After that night, many times Catherine and Isabella would visit Heathcliff at Wuthering Heights, and he would come to the Grange to visit them. Well, Catherine, but Isabella was always there too. Of course, Catherine was using Isabella to allow her to visit Heathcliff without causing any kind of stir, but all of that visiting made Isabella fall for Heathcliff. Upon finding this out, Catherine had some very not nice things to say about Heathcliff to convince Isabella that she should get it out of her head about loving Heathcliff. And of course, Isabella, completely blinded by love, didn't believe anything Catherine had to say about Heathcliff, and she looked to Nellie to assure her that he wasn't what Catherine said he was. But Nellie agreed with Catherine. Nellie tells Isabella and us that there are these rumors that Heathcliff has Hindley up all night playing cards, losing at cards, and he's lending Hindley money for his gambling. With Heathcliff, Hindley just plays cards and gets drunk. But she didn't believe Nellie any more than she believed Catherine. And one day, after Isabella's declaration of love for Heathcliff, he came for a visit. Catherine's cruelty is on full display at this point. She announces to Heathcliff that Isabella is in love with him, and that if Catherine, her rival, were to step aside, Isabella was certain that she could win Heathcliff's heart. Isabella was surprised, embarrassed, and she wanted to leave, but oh no, Catherine wasn't going to let her leave. She was certain to make sure Isabella was disabused of any feelings for Heathcliff. Heathcliff made it clear that he could not and would not ever have any kind of feelings for Isabella, and once she was completely destroyed, Catherine let her leave. After Isabella left, Heathcliff scolded Catherine for teasing Isabella like that, but she assured him it was all true. She told Heathcliff that she was honest about who he is to Isabella to turn her off of him and to punish her a little bit, but that she likes Isabella a little too much to allow Heathcliff to hurt her. And he assures her that he likes Isabella too little to even try. But then he started asking about her being Edgar's heir. Catherine either doesn't notice or doesn't care about his interest in Edgar's heir, but Nellie notices, and she thinks he might be plotting something. You think? I mean, he did say he was there for revenge, and Catherine did tell him that the best revenge he could get on her would be to destroy Edgar and Isabella. Thanks so much for watching and listening. If you like this video or like what I do, be sure to subscribe for more videos.